The air in the training camp before the World Cup 2026 was thick with expectation, a palpable hum of a nation's hopes resting squarely on our shoulders. I remember the glint in the captain's eye, a man I'd admired my entire career, as he spoke of destiny. We were touted as favorites, a golden generation ready to etch our names into history. Every pass in training was sharp, every tackle committed. But even then, I, being an older, more observant soul within the squad, could feel a subtle shift, a barely perceptible tremor beneath the surface of our unity. There was a quiet arrogance creeping into some corners, a sense of entitlement among a few of the younger stars, fueled by the relentless media hype. It wasn't overt, just a fleeting look, a missed high five, a hushed conversation that stopped the moment I walked past. I brushed it off as pre-tournament jitters, but a tiny voice in the back of my mind whispered of something more sinister brewing. Our opening match, a dominant victory, should have cemented our confidence, but instead, it seemed to unravel a delicate thread. I witnessed it during the halftime break. The manager, a man revered for his tactical genius, delivered a seemingly innocuous instruction, but it was met with a dismissive shrug from our star striker, the maestro. I saw the manager's jaw clench, a flicker of cold anger in his eyes, quickly masked. Later that evening, during the team dinner, the maestro was conspicuously absent, claiming a sudden illness. But I saw him earlier, on his phone, a furtive conversation near the hotel's back entrance, his eyes darting around. There was an unspoken tension now, a widening chasm between the authority of the coaching staff and the individualistic bravado of certain key players. The team's dynamic, once a cohesive unit, felt like it was fracturing along invisible fault lines, a slow, agonizing crack. The tension escalated quickly. One evening, after a particularly grueling training session, I was retrieving something I'd forgotten from the locker room. The main lights were off, only the emergency strip lighting casting long, distorted shadows. I heard hushed voices coming from the showers, specifically from the maestro, and one of our key defensive midfielders, a usually quiet, unassuming player. They weren't talking about tactics or the next game. I heard fragments, the payout. And, can't afford for this to get out. And, the old man won't see it coming. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about ego anymore, this felt like something far more insidious, a secret pact that threatened to corrupt the very heart of our team. I pressed myself against the lockers, barely breathing, trying to make sense of the fragments, my mind racing through every possible, terrible implication. The weight of what I'd potentially overheard pressed down on me. The manager, sensing the growing discord but perhaps not understanding its true depth, made a desperate, career-defining choice. For our crucial quarter-final match, he benched the maestro, citing tactical reasons that fooled no one. The decision sent shockwaves through the squad. I remember the venom in the maestro's eyes as he glared at the manager during the team meeting, a look that spoke of a deep-seated personal vendetta, not just professional disagreement. Morale plummeted instantly. Some players openly questioned the manager's authority, their loyalty wavering. Others, like me, felt a sick dread, knowing there was more to it than met the eye, but paralyzed by the fear of speaking out. The manager had drawn a line in the sand, but instead of rallying the troops, he'd ignited an internal civil war, unknowingly playing right into the hands of those who sought to undermine us from within. The truth, or at least a significant part of it, finally clawed its way into the light. It wasn't a direct match-fixing plot, not in the way you might imagine, but something far more personal and damaging. The defensive midfielder, the quiet one I'd overheard, had been acting as a conduit. The maestro, driven by an old grudge against the manager from their time at a previous club, was subtly, intentionally undermining the team's strategy. He wasn't trying to lose, not outright, but to ensure the manager's tactics failed, making him look incompetent. He fed distorted information, created confusion in key moments, and deliberately misinterpreted instructions on the pitch. I saw a discarded note, carelessly left behind, with scribbled formations and arrows, along with cryptic phrases like "exploit central channel on counter" and "hold deep for first 20." It was then I realized the depth of his betrayal, using our shared goals as a weapon against his personal adversary, dragging us all down with him. The locker room after our agonizing quarterfinal defeat was not just silent, it was a tomb of shattered dreams and simmering rage. The whispers had grown too loud, the evidence too stark. Someone, likely out of sheer frustration or a sense of justice, confronted the maestro directly. The explosion was immediate and visceral. Accusations flew like shrapnel, tearing through what little unity remained. I remember the captain, his face contorted with a pain I'd never seen, shouting, "How could you do this to us? To our country?" The maestro, usually so composed, snapped, lashing out with bitter retorts about the manager's past injustices. It wasn't a fight with fists, but a battle of words that cut far deeper, severing bonds forged over years. The trust was utterly broken, lying in jagged pieces on the floor, irreparable. We weren't a team anymore, we were just a collection of broken individuals, each carrying the weight of a betrayal that felt more crushing than any defeat. Despite the internal meltdown, we still had a meaningless third-place playoff match to contend with, a cruel irony. Stepping onto the pitch felt like walking into a gladiatorial arena, but the enemy wasn't the opposing team, it was ourselves. The tension was suffocating. Passes went astray, communication was non-existent. Our movements were disjointed, each player isolated in their own private hell of resentment and disappointment. I looked around, seeing the hollow eyes of my teammates, the forced smiles, the lack of passion. The beautiful game had become a chore, a performance of obligation rather than joy. The maestro was on the bench, a ghost haunting the sidelines, his presence a constant reminder of the rot within. We lost, of course, a pathetic display that mirrored the complete collapse of our spirit. The crowd's groans were a fitting soundtrack to the end of what should have been our triumphant era. The World Cup 2026 ended not with celebrations for us, but with a swift, brutal cover-up. The manager was sacked, officially for failure to meet expectations, a convenient scapegoat. The maestro made a swift, lucrative transfer to an obscure league, his reputation seemingly untarnished to the public, but forever stained in the minds of those who knew. The incident was swept under the rug, a dark secret protected by powerful forces. I left the national team shortly after, unable to shake the feeling of having been complicit in the silence. The weight of that unspoken truth, the betrayal I witnessed, it changed me. It showed me the ugly underbelly of professional football, where personal vendettas and unchecked egos can destroy not just a team, but a nation's dream. Every time I see a highlight reel from that tournament, I don't see glory, I see the shadows in the locker room, and I hear the echoes of a broken promise.